everyone. Welcome back to Parallel Barking. I'm Ariana Backer here with my co-host, Larry Backer.
Woof woof.
Bark, bark. We have a very interesting story, like always. Of course, we are interesting people, so of course we have interesting stories to bring you. But this has nothing to do with us. This has everything to do with what's going on in the world, and Facebook has been brought in to the discussion of abortion.
And it seems that we're all now becoming unwilling witnesses and participation to the fallout that we, I think, quite accurately predicted, starting with the leak of the abortion decision that we knew was coming.
Oh, yes.
Right? So this is story number 242, right, of the tragedies that are going to
yes, example
ooze out of the political implications and the normative implications of this technical decision. But anyway, so go on, tell the story.
This story includes many, many, many facets that should probably bother people. The
or
sharing of your information,
well, tell the story.
Okay. So a Nebraska teenager and her mother are facing criminal charges based on the state law of, not allowing abortion because they allege that she aborted her fetus at about 6 months, 23
weeks.
She's being tried as an adult, but the crux of this is that authorities obtained her Facebook messages to get this charge.
Right. Well, and it's actually slightly more complicated than this. The original charges came from an investigation. Someone tipped off the local authorities in Nebraska that this woman, the young woman, had miscarried and buried the baby, and then it turned out that when they
if they knew what was going on, by the way.
Well, but no, someone snitched, right?
Yes,
someone snitched.
A neighbor be snitching.
And the snitch was, hey, this woman has miscarried and buried her baby, and then it turned out that they may have not only buried it, but then the baby or the fetus, I don't know what you want to call it, at 23 weeks. And then they unburied it and tried to burn it, and the reports were about that. And then, and only then, the authorities then tried to figure out whether it was a miscarriage or not. And in that context, they sent a search warrant effectively to Facebook, to Meta. And Meta dutifully turned around and gave the authorities the messages that went back and forth between mom and daughter, where it became fairly clear, if one believed the messages, and I haven't read the messages carefully, but that mom gave daughter medication, and I don't know,
or instruction on how to administer
some medication, which the daughter obtained. I don't know if mom gave it to her or not, and that was that set the stage for the miscarriage. We don't know if the fetus was alive or not, viable or not, but it was 23 weeks, and then that set this up. So we've got all kinds.
And the Nebraska law currently outlaws abortions at 20 weeks. Beyond
right, 20. They currently outlaw abortion at 20 weeks, and as many of you know, whatever the temporal rule is, they are then elaborated through a sometimes very complicated set of notification and approval rules, depending on who is it that wants to get an abortion, et cetera, et cetera. So it's now more complicated than it had been in a while, and administratively there can be all kinds of hurdles, but we're going to put that to the side. What makes this very interesting, though, and this is what I think you want to talk about, Ariana, is not the tragedy around this set of events, the the miscarriage or the termination of pregnancy, the burying of the terminated fetus, then digging it up and trying to burn it. But the role of Facebook in developing or providing the information that was necessary to add to this
Mm-hmm.
the charge of an illegal abortion.
Right. Yes. Yes. Um, I was I'm always taken aback, I guess, not taken aback. I'm always interested by Facebook's and I guess other tech giants' responses to these kinds of situations because I think it um, gives an indication as to how other companies might respond because they'll either follow suit depending on how the public reacts, or they'll do something completely opposite. And hopefully, other companies are not going to be doing the same thing. It sounds like Google, for instance, is doing something a little bit different, like
They're going to delete
deleting
right.
the location data of the customers who have looked up anything having to do with abortion. But on the other hand, Facebook likes to supply other companies with not other companies, but perhaps anti-abortion groups with data about people who are.
Well, yeah, no, data is money and power and influence. And there's a million ways that not a million ways, I'm not a tech person, but there's certainly more than one way that one can deal with this as an information or a communications platform. Google's was one way of deleting location data for abortion services. There's opt-in or opt-out of location saving. There's there are probably all kinds of things that the company can do, encryption and the like. What Facebook did,
It's just very wishy-washy. I mean, the way that
but they were worse than wishy-washy. They told everyone that they stood at the forefront of protecting everyone's privacy,
and then
the
they didn't.
they did, right? They wilted.
Their response was, we were they got kind of lawyery. They said that the warrant had nothing. They didn't say anything about abortion. All it said was a stillborn baby. So we were totally okay with sharing this information because we didn't feel like it was
right. And of course, this contrasts even years ago when Apple for a while resisted governmental efforts to build a backdoor into their phones. Remember when the police want to go in and they said no. Google's work, and Google, of course, when it suits them, can also be quite compliant with the authorities, but not in this case. But certainly, Facebook could have the fact that whether it could have done something else or not, it didn't, and it chose to take this path. And what it suggests is, in a way, that no matter what these platforms say, either they will, at least initially, try to be supportive of women who are engaged in reproductive autonomy decisions. Although, well, I'm not going to get into that in this case is problematic, I suspect, for a number of reasons, but we don't have enough facts to really know what's going on in that context. So I'll leave it alone, other than to say the factual context in which this arose is another tragedy. But the bigger one here is that I'm not sure that it is possible, no matter what these platforms say or do, that you can actually trust them.
No, exactly. Like there's no way that you can. And I wanted to spend the morning looking at the Facebook privacy policy and see,
You're gonna get a headache.
yeah, there's no way that those documents are written for public consumption. they they they're not written so that you can actually understand them, and that's partially for, reasons. But
Correct.
I also thought it was interesting the way Facebook responded, because it kind of implies that, well, I mean, and you already said this, that they'll comply if it suits them and if they agree with it politically, or
Right.
whenever they
Or they
feel like
have,
it.
or worse, they really don't have any kind of protocol to figure out how to deal with this.
Yes,
And this is,
what's your
you know,
process? They don't really have a process. It's just
right.
like, if they feel like it's uh substantially a problem, or if they feel like they'll lose money, then
Right. But Google's is also not foolproof, right? So that
true.
they announced that they're going to delete, all they're going to do is delete location data for the users who'd use the platform to look up abortion services.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to look up abortion services? In this case, they didn't just look up abortion services. It looks like they also obtained the medicines or the pharma necessary to, and then went ahead and did it. So it's not clear whether or to what extent Google's policy would also be protective. And this is going to be repeated over and over. If the model is, I'm sitting in Texas and I'm going to call Planned Parenthood in New York in order to fly to New York to get an abortion within the time legally permitted within New York, that probably is covered in Google. But if I'm going to do a bunch of other things, buy abortion pills in Hawaii and have them sent, or what, I can't even imagine the scenarios. Then, in addition to the risk that you have, assuming that you're otherwise not engaged in the termination of a fetus that is absolutely viable, that is preemie quality. Putting that aside, you still have no idea whether or to what extent you can talk about this on these communication platforms. Forget email, right? On these communication platforms, and remain protected against the state. And I finished reading this, and the only thing I can think of was the now decades long programming from what in their own self-congratulatory way is very left individual rights respecting Hollywood community, where police show after police show after police show have been trying to inculcate in the masses of the Americans that you must stand naked before the state, because invariably, no matter what kind of damage they're going to do, the state has the right to muck around and look at everything in order to make a determination or ultimately reach some kind of end of an investigation where a culprit or evildoer is caught. And so the innocent are caught up in this, as well as the quote unquote guilty. And in this context, right, we now have the people who are engaged in 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 the assertion of reproductive rights, now connected or intersecting with the agendas and limitations and business models of these communication platforms. And what this shows already is that no good will come from this. We're just going to augment personal tragedies, and all these personal tragedies are going to be these are going to be sacrifices on the altar of either high theory or grand principle, and that ought to cause some people some concern.
Yeah, I mean, it created more problems. All of this new legislation, these new trigger laws, are going to create, like you said, more tragedies. This is, and there was no thought process for the mothers. There was nothing.
Well, we can't get into the heads of all of the actors in this, other than to pretend that they're some kind of avatar for these TV cop shows,
You're right,
that
though.
are used to train us.
All I can think is that women are just baby receptacles, and that is
Well,
what.
they are, as the right would put it, they are no longer themselves.
Right. They're only at that time, they are
Right.
baby receptacles, and the only thing that matters is.
Right. And that, that's a moral, a religious, and an ideological set of determinations, which are now potentially given political effect, or maybe not. I think it was Kansas, the voters in Kansas rejected a constitutional amendment on fetal personhood. On the other hand, you've got other states that suggest that, my great grandchildren who are as yet unborn may also be entitled to personhood today. I
Yes.
mean, that's when you spin this out to its ludicrous endpoint, in both directions, of course.
Well, I'll,
You know,
I'll posit this question for you. How do you think it would be different if men were the ones who got pregnant?
if men were the ones. Oh, I've got two answers for that. One, certainly the tenor of the conversation would be different, but two, a reminder that to some extent, it's not just men, but women who are driving this discussion on the right. It's not
I'll,
just the men.
I
And
agree. How do you think this
it's
would
important
differ?
not to,
How
it's
do you think this
important.
would differ? It, even the women on the same side, how do you think this would differ?
In terms of this, I suspect that, if depending on which women from which social, religious, or political class is driving this, that the result would be even harsher.
You think, really?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. If we're looking at this from a
And where are
feminist
you
lens,
getting that information from? Because that
I'm
is not how it's going, or it went with male contraceptives, or the attempt at giving male birth control pills.
all I'm suggesting is that you cannot be so wed to the narrative that suggests some kind of reductionist, essentialist notion of this human called female or woman. And again, putting aside the variations in
Okay.
trans, right? That inevitably, that's like saying when you elect a woman president, we'll have peace, or a woman
All
legislature
I
will
asked was,
apparently be
how do
more.
you think it would change? How
I
do
and my answer to you remains the same, that there is a substantial likelihood that depending on which women from which social class and which religious community are driving this, that the result can be even harsher.
well, and I
And
wasn't
so
asking
and
about
so
just the
the
women's reaction. I was asking about.
No, I'm talking about in terms of driving this. If it was a woman prosecutor, woman judge, woman police person, it depends. It could have gone. It could go either way. In terms of the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, in terms of the determination to go get the search warrant, you just don't know the gender. You would think and hope that women would be more would have more empathy, but again, there's no guarantee. There
Oh,
may
I didn't
be.
mean in this specific situation. I just
Oh,
meant for Roe versus Wade. I should have
oh,
been
if
more
they had
clear.
been all women again,
No, no,
but
no, 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 no. If men in general were the
right.
ones to give birth,
Oh,
would we
oh.
even be having this discussion?
Well, the problem with that's an easy argument to make. The problem with that is that the initial response in my head would be, well, if men could give birth, then they're female. And we're back to where we were, because the issue isn't male or female. The issue is who gets to decide this. The people who have the physical capacity to give birth, whatever you want to call them,
I
or the
wish that's what
people,
it was.
or
I
the
honestly
people,
do. I
or
honestly
the.
do, but I don't think that's what it is.
But I'm now, to use your kind of offensive terminology. Even if the only people who had the authority to decide this were birth receptacles or pregnancy receptacles, I think you'd still get a spectrum of views. And on one side, it can be as harsh or harsher. One can be as mean or meaner when one shares or has an identity with the condition that is subject to regulation, as when one is as a male, as a bystander. So there's no guarantee that merely by positing a kind of majority, a reductionist, essentialist majority of people who share a similar characteristic, that you're going to get a different result. The result could be different, but it could be worse. So I'm not sure. In our circles, certainly, and with with respect to most of the women we know, the likelihood of a different approach to this is high. But we've got 350 million people in this country, at around half of which are women, and it is not clear that they're all walking in lockstep. It's the same kind of, this is the essentialist reductionist error that always comes when one ascribes some kind of
I mean, you
ideological.
keep on focusing on just women.
But
Honestly,
you're
I
the
think
one who
that
raised the
what
woman thing.
I mm,
All right.
this is a men and women thing. Like
Right.
this
if
is
if men could give birth, they'd be women. And the way we define things, they'd be female, and therefore we still have the people who can give birth versus people who can't give birth gap, and we'd have the same problem again, a range. I want to be able to say that, look, if it were men who would give birth, then they would be much more sympathetic. But because my sense is that there are a whole lot of women who can give birth who are as equally unsympathetic as the men who can't give birth, reversing the roles is not going to necessarily change the spectrum of outcome. That's my point.
I just don't think you have an imagination to be able to answer this.
I hope you're right. I mean, seriously, I hope you're right. I with a thinking heart, I believe that maybe that is unlikely.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's the problem with a lot of people. It can't really envision a future or a present that doesn't look like what it looks like right now.
No, not at all. I mean, we can envision that. It just requires training. So now everyone is going to have to go, and you're going to have to think about how you're going to reprogram people from viewing from the way in which they understand, empathize, and embed empathy, to the way in which they understand the basic principles and approaches of social organization, respect, autonomy, and the like. Sure, knock yourself out. That has been the object of culture and cultural shifts since year zero. And we don't have to envision, we know that that can change radically, and sometimes in relatively short amount of time, about a generation. But we're talking about a generation, and that's nice. It will be our progeny that will benefit from this or suffer for it. But in the meantime, what we have is this Nebraska teenager. I guess she was, I think, 17 years old.
Yes.
And her mom, now caught up in this web that's only going to spin out in more and more tragedy producing ways. And here, and I want to end because our time is up. So we both look at this, we're both appalled in our own ways, although as usual, we approach this differently, which is good. And now we're stuck with this because this is reality. So what do you tell the next mom and daughter who live in state X that has no abortion and who love their Facebook. What do you do? How do you
Communicate
deal with
off
it?
the grid. Communicate off the grid. Get a land. Nope, don't even get a landline. Do not trust any large company unless you get a signed affidavit saying that they're not going to share any of your private data.
Oh my God, this is Soviet style paranoia.
I
And
I
notice I'm not arguing against you. I'm
it's
just going,
there's
wow.
no reason not to do this because it's obvious that things can happen behind your back that, I mean, you weren't even aware that were happening.
But you're going to be tattled on. You're going to be tattled on in old Soviet style.
Yes, your neighbor's going to look at what you're doing like this is ridiculous. This whole thing like this
Well, the neighbor thing is as old as
I know
society.
this is why we have sidewalks so people can look closely at
Right.
you
And
through
and who
windows.
knows why there was tattling. The 17-year-old might have had a big mouth. They might have been
We have
observed. Who
no
knows
idea
what
what
was
she
going on?
was going through. This could have been this I'm sure was the most frightening
Yeah, yeah,
experience.
yeah. But focus on the platforms, which is
Yeah.
the most interesting wrinkle in this tragedy, besides all of the other parts of the
I
tragedy, including waiting 23 weeks to decide that that would be a great time for a termination. And again,
we
we don't have any of the background.
we love to share all of our information
Do we
to to
do
the world on our
do
social
do
platforms.
do we? Not all of us. Uh,
Many of us do, and that includes you, Papa.
I'm very strategic in what I'm sharing,
But that doesn't
and
mean that
becoming increasingly so after
your
stories like
location is
this.
not that doesn't mean your
Oh, yeah,
location is
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
shared.
Oh,
Things that
agreed,
you don't
agreed,
know isn't
agreed,
being shared. I mean,
agreed. My thoughts and dreams and my wrestling with myself maybe less so, but certainly my location.
it's just this is a whole another issue with privacy. We were talking
Right.
about abortion as privacy with a woman's body, but now I'm talking about it in a more broad sense.
Yes.
It, this is everyone's privacy.
Right.
And
It's everyone's privacy and in involving not just the most intimate of relationships, but effectively, again, we go back to you stand naked and exposed before
right,
the state, that you might as well just strip down, tear down your walls, put up windows, because as far as the state is concerned, they can go into and pry into the most intimate aspect of everything in the name of law enforcement
right.
or control or regulatory management or whatever it is that the state has believes it has the authority and power to engage in. And and there it is. So one of the alternatives is Soviet style paranoia. Another one is in China, for example, one of the things that's happened is that there's been you may not be able to hide your location. And I guess you can, everyone can get a VPN. And then the state will start hunting down ways to end run
Yeah,
VPNs.
there's always
I
a
mean, right, right. So there's that cat and mouse game. And I suspect we're going to see a whole lot more of that in the future. And NGOs, oh, you're on notice now. NGOs is part of your service to women who are looking at personal autonomy issues. One of the first things out of your mouth should be, do you have a VPN? And if not, I have one available, and you should be raising money to give women and others who are sympathetic
yeah,
that kind
and
of
finding the technology to scramble the
exactly.
location and
Exactly. Surely,
yes,
surely
the sources.
the techno community can not only come up with this stuff, but then the NGO community should be able to distribute it. And
Yes.
sure, there'll be pushback, and we're now in that game. But in China, for example, what they've also done, this has caused a revolutionary transformation in language. So Facebook right? Mom is not going to say to daughter, "Oh, my goodness, we're really having a horrible crisis here with your pregnancy. I know it's 3 weeks after the law, which is now gone anyway, but it's 3 weeks after, but there's X that's going on." And then you have this conversation. The conversation may now say something like this: "My teddy bear is feeling bad." "Oh, why is your teddy bear feeling bad?" "Oh, I don't know. It just burst, the seams burst, and I don't know how to sew it," right? And so all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden your language changes. And
Mm-hmm.
and in effect, what we're going to do is, and this happened in the Soviet Union to some extent as well, although it wasn't tech driven like this. And immediate, you see much better examples in other countries where the state is observing and using data trolling protocols to pull information.
Right.
Language is going to change, and we're going to have to start thinking about how to change the way we communicate so that the state can't crawl through what Facebook apparently, without a second thought, is more than happy to turn over.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's another thing. And likely, I suspect that this is an opportunity. If this is America and we're talking about business, and I'll end with this, is American business. Surely, our tech people, we created the internet out of nothing. We created intranets out of nothing. Surely, this is likely to, depending on how strongly people feel about it and how nervous, the fracturing of these communication platforms, and we may see the rise of more secure and very well vetted um, um, platforms, communication platforms, and then the state chasing after them.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. I can't wait to see what startups we see out of this.
right, right. It's interesting times, but anyway, it's this is quite a perplexing story, and again, it looks like. And before the leak, I never thought we would be spending 2022 talking about this. There's so many other things that are going on. But we are likely to come back in future podcasts as more and more of these tragedies roll in.
Bark, bark.
Woof, woof.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you later.